Alexa Nazaro, founder of the Axel Author Group, and we are back with another episode of Write, Publish, Connect with possibly a familiar face. I have with me today Adele Royce. She is the author of a couple of series. Her most recently published book is Slipper Girl, which is the sequel to Summer's Blood in her new series, The Neon Diaries. She's also the author of another series, Truth, Lies, and Love in Advertising. Adele, thank you so much for joining us again.
Thank you, Alexa, for having me back. This is always so much fun.
Yes, and it's so nice to work with an author throughout several books. It's just a really nice partnership. So I'm really happy to have you back. And let's dive right in and using the series as a segue. So writing a series can be quite different than writing a standalone book. And so what was your process like for writing the series? Do you have a plan from the get-go of how many books will be in the series? Does it evolve over time? Why don't you tell us a bit about that?
So, my series process is pretty consistent. I'm always thinking about the next book as I'm wrapping the current one because what I do is I set the next book in the series up at the end of the book, there's always something that's going to indicate where the next story might go, who might be involved as a main character in that next story. And I really think it was originally, I didn't intend for it to be a series when I wrote Truth, Lies, and Love in Advertising. I actually wasn't sure where that was going to go. And I found that the characters were so memorable. The feedback that I got from readers was that they wanted more. And that's where the series and then switched the genre over to mystery thriller for Summer's Blood and Slipper Girl, which you and I have worked extensively on together. And really, I'm just always thinking about what's going to happen next.
Mhm.
And I don't ever want to be left without a creative project open and going.
Nice. So, do you have an idea that this series will be wrapping up at some point, or do you see this continuing for another two, three, four books, or do you not know yet?
I don't, truthfully, I don't know yet, but so originally I thought trilogy again, but I see this series continuing beyond that. I think 4 or 5, it could go on. It just depends on the story and where I'm taking it. I feel like with having moved into mystery thriller, there's a lot of opportunity there to extend the story and without
Mhm.
becoming formulaic. I always want the stories to be fresh and interesting and different. And
Yes.
so as long as those stories are fresh and coming out in a the idea factory is still there and it's coming out and it's going to be fresh and strong. I'm going to continue as long as I feel. But I do think that I will keep these characters going regardless. And
Okay,
yeah.
interesting. All right, cool. So I know you've mentioned to me that some readers have read Slipper Girl and then said, "Oh my gosh, I want to go back and read Summer's Blood." And so do you find that you're mentioning that in your marketing? Because in all honesty, typically readers will say, "Oh, I'm diving already into book two. Maybe this isn't a good move." How would an author mention that, if at all, saying, "Hey, read Slipper Girl, but now dive back in and see how it all started"? Or do you have that in your marketing message?
So my marketing message does not necessarily put these two series in one basket.
Mhm.
And by the virtue of the fact that they are two different genres,
Yeah.
my greatest engagement with readers is to always ask them what they like to read,
Mhm.
what are they reading? And there is some crossover because if somebody likes romantic dramedy, they're going to love the first series. And I always keep a romantic thread going in all
Mhm.
of the books. So if you read Summer's Blood, there will be a relationship, there will be tension, there will be something where you're going to root for somebody's relationship to work out. And that will be the warm, feel good moment that you experience at the end of my books. And so same with Slipper Girl. So I feel like if a reader really loves all of that, Yeah, if you read Slipper Girl and you think it's great and you want to go back and read Princess Smile or Camera Ready or one of the other books, go for it. But I would never kind of lump them all together just because
Right.
the nature of the genre is they're very different. And people are very specific about their genre. They're
Yes.
very specific
Yes.
about what they read, right? It's personal.
Right. Absolutely. And I want, you mentioned, I like asking readers what they want. So do you have a process in place to do that? How do you gather, excuse me, that data?
It's interesting, Alexa, because I gather the data through all of my daily engagement with readers, social media,
Mhm.
um, uh, the festivals, book
Yeah.
signings are the best way to get feedback from readers.
Hmm.
And also through my email engagement. You know, we do a newsletter, as you know, your
Hmm.
team puts together my
Hmm.
newsletters, and I ask questions of my readers, and they
Nice.
come back to me with responses, and I gather
Nice.
all of that, and I see kind of what, you know, I want to make sure that I'm engaging with readers who want what I'm writing, and that it's and that's a delicate thing to fine tune, I found.
And what do you mean by that?
Well, it's just I think readers who, you know, there are some readers who just read romance. And, you know, so they're going to enjoy that first series. There are readers who just I get like lots of fun responses when I ask what they read. And it's funny, they'll say, somebody said recently, um, romantic suspense. I thought, okay.
Yeah.
I actually feel like some of my books would fall
Yeah.
into that category,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah, for
But
sure.
they are specific. But I take all of that information, and it's really helpful for me to know what people are reading and what they like.
And to what degree will you allow that feedback to shape your next book?
Honestly, I don't allow that feedback to shape my next book.
Mm.
My books are written because I want to tell the story that I want to tell. And I
Mhm.
do love the readers who I've had readers that just finished Slipper Girl really quickly, and they're like,
Yeah.
I did want it to end. Well, when's the next book coming? Well,
Oh,
and I'm
that's
like, okay,
great.
give me a few minutes.
Yeah.
But that's like so awesome. But no, so I feel like no, I'm just continuing the story. I don't even feel like, you know, I don't see myself ever being a fantasy writer, for example. And
Right.
that is a
Understood.
hugely popular
It
genre,
is.
right? I saw so many readers at the book signing I just recently did who love that genre. So there's a lot out there, but I'm not ever going to craft my stories based on what I
Mhm.
feel somebody might want. It's always going to be um, with my readers in mind and just really telling a great story. I think a great
Very
story is the
cool.
key to a great book, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. So you were talking about festivals. So let's talk about festivals because I know you are really active. If people go to your website, they will see all the different things you're doing. You're really getting out there and engaging with readers. And you recently attended the LA Times Festival of Books, which I understand from you is the biggest book festival in the US.
Yes, that is true. I was surprised because, you know, we see a lot of media out there that says people don't read anymore. Nobody
Yes.
reads fiction. And to
Yes.
see 150,000 people
People.
who are there in this big, and they dubbed it Bookchella because it was so
Yeah.
popular.
Yeah,
The
right?
LA
Oh
Times
my
Festival of
gosh.
Books. Yeah, it's
Wow.
Bookchella. So there are just a ton of readers, and I love the fact that I was invited to go to that was just such an honor and an amazing experience for me. And
So you were invited to go, right?
yes, yes, I was invited to be a part of a booth that really helps promotes independent authors.
Okay.
There were a lot of we all had a time slot. I had a booth mate with me. He was a wonderful fantasy writer, and
Hmm.
it's just a great opportunity to meet other authors, to meet readers, to talk to people, to look around and see, you know, where people are standing in a long line. You know, what book
Yeah.
is that?
What book is that that's leading at the end of the line? So
Yes.
what was it like for you? Did you have a little bit of a line yourself? And what would be some tips? Because honestly, such a huge event can really be kind of overwhelming unless you're accustomed to them. So Did you have to sort of deal with that feeling of overwhelmingness and kind of get over that?
I so I wouldn't say that I had a line, because I mean this is a huge festival.
Yeah.
There are people milling about looking there. Maybe they just started their day at the time that my signing started. So when a reader would stop by and pick up my book, and I have it here, and pick
Yes.
it up and look through it and read the back cover copy. And my first question is always, what do you like to read?
Hmm.
And I think the best thing is to go into the festival not with the idea I'm going to sell this whole, the entire inventory of books that I was allowed to bring. Like say it was
Hmm.
25 books.
Hmm.
If I go home with some in my arms, that's not a failure.
Hmm.
What you have to remember if you're going to do one of those is that is an amazing opportunity. It's a great publicity opportunity. It's a
Hmm.
great way to engage with readers, and it's a great way to meet and make connections. And for me, that's what it was all about. And I would also, a tip I would give to is, well, number one, don't go in thinking you're going to sell a whole bunch of books and that's your criterion for a
Hmm.
successful event. Also, be generous to the other authors, acknowledge them. If somebody comes up to you and says, I love romance or I love fantasy, and I have a
Hmm.
fantasy author sitting next to me, I'm like, well, that's not
Right.
what I'm writing, but
But here you
here is
go.
this gentleman has wonderfully said a trilogy sitting here. And
Yeah.
then there were a lot of other books that were available at that booth. There were children's books, there were,
Hmm.
just all different genres. Just be generous, and don't think so. I've got to sell all my books. Let me hawk my books. It's not a good look. You don't want to be
Right.
standing there going, hey, buy my book. It's just authors, we
It's not
shouldn't do
good. Yeah.
that.
And nobody really wants to deal with that, right? People see that and they tend to, oh, no, no, I don't think so. Yeah,
It's
exactly.
cringy.
Yeah, very, very cringy. I totally, totally agree.
Yeah.
So before you were talking about the characters and how, you want to keep the characters going, and you do a lot of creative things with your characters. You have bios, for instance, on your website. You really find unique ways of letting the story transcend the pages and just kind of positioning them as people for your readers. So, what are some other, you would call perhaps off the beaten path type of marketing things that you've done, or that how can you encourage other authors to think more creatively? Because it seems like there are always the classic tips. You see authors on social media all the time doing nothing but promoting their book, or promoting the cover, and there's a lot of that, and you want to have that in your bag of promotional tricks, if you will. But what are some other things that you find are useful?
Yeah, so the character section and the spotlight on the characters was something that we came up with like 5 years ago, because I was getting feedback from the readers that they love these characters. They wanted to know
Mm-hmm.
what happened to them. They want to know where they're going. They want to understand more. They want to hang out with them. And I'm thinking,
Mm-hmm.
what a great opportunity to sort of enrich the experience on the website.
Yeah.
That's what spawned the whole world of Adele Royce, because we realized it was a world and a universe that people
Mm-hmm.
wanted to be a part of. And so
Mm-hmm.
and I've had other, author acquaintances maybe like try to emulate the
Mm-hmm.
meet the characters thing, but I really think it has to do with your type of book. And yeah, it's a great idea, but if it doesn't fit your
Mm-hmm.
genre, if it doesn't fit that you have a series that you write character-driven books with
Mm-hmm.
rich characters, and even my plot-driven thrillers have rich characters. I would tell you to dig into your book, find
Mm-hmm.
the themes, find things that would be cool for you to sort
Mm-hmm.
of pull out. Listen to your readers. Listen to what they're talking about when they talk about your book. Is there something about the plot? Is there something really interesting that you can pull out and then put, incorporate into your marketing? I think that's a great thing to do. But it really does make you have to take a step back and look
Mm-hmm.
at the book and see, like, and listen to what readers are saying. I do have some really great character driven marketing that's coming in the next
Nice.
couple months. And yeah, and it's really a deeper dive into the mood, the colors, the characters,
Nice.
what they like, and it
Cool.
required some real, some deep sort of thinking about,
Sure.
yeah. So
Nice. So
yeah, so
nice.
that's
I look
exciting.
forward to seeing that. That's so cool. You were talking let's close it off with the newsletter, the really famous author newsletter. So you're engaging through a newsletter. Just give us an idea, give the listeners an idea of what kind of content do you tend to include in a newsletter?
Great question. My content has changed since I started sending the newsletter, but I think what I like to do is rather, to your point earlier, just promote my book cover because once this is a working, breathing list of readers who are joining
Mhm.
and who are wanting to see what you come up with. And I found it very good to incorporate a mix. Character spotlights for me, great. Reviews after the first book, great. But I started something which I just did in my recent newsletter. I'm going to review other authors' books.
Mhm.
And I feel as though introducing, and again, being generous to other authors, is introducing
Yes,
a book
yes.
that maybe they wouldn't know about or wouldn't have heard, or an author they hadn't heard
Right.
of, is kind of a cool thing. Or it can be like a major author that who I love, who I read every book from. So I think that's good. I like to also engage, ask a question of the readers.
Mhm.
They know that they can write me on my email, and they'll answer a question for me, and I do some giveaways. I mean, I just think it's really important to mix it up and come up with things that, think about what you would want to see from an author. What
Mhm.
do you want to see coming out? What's going to make you read it from beginning to end?
Excellent. Adele, it was so nice to talk to you as always. And I look forward to the next book in your Neon Diary series. For anyone who wants more information, you can visit Adele's website, www.adelroyce.com. And once again, Adele is the author of the recently published Slipper Girl, and part of the Neon Diary series, as well as her other series. And she's just a great writer. And thank you so much, Adele, for joining me on Write Publish Connect.
Thanks, Alexa, for having me back.